For centuries, nations built their power out of stone and steel. National security meant drawing a hard line in the sand and daring anyone to cross it. It was a strategy of strict exclusion and reactive deterrence. If you built the thickest walls, you survived. But a bigger wall fails when the pressure doesn't come from an invading army, but from supply chain collapses, cyber infiltrations, and energy blockades. In a hyper-connected world, rigidity is a fatal liability. A structure built only to resist pressure will eventually snap. We have to look at this contrast between the old model of defense and the new reality of survival. The definition of a sovereign state is evolving. Power is measured by what a country becomes absolutely indispensable to. Look at the right side of this schematic. If one of those nodes takes a hit, the system doesn't collapse, it reroutes, it adapts. The flow of data, energy, and trade continues without interruption. The illusion of isolation is over. To survive modern disruption, a state has to master the network. This diagram maps the aquarium model, a strategic framework pioneered by the United Arab Emirates. Notice how energy, trade, and data are locked together under a unified command architecture. The government acts as a systemic architect, managing these three massive sectors as a single living organism. But an advanced blueprint doesn't eliminate risk. This vulnerability paradox schematic maps how sophisticated systems fall apart. The breakdown rarely starts with a cracked pipe. The real failure points are human vectors, unclear chains of command, misaligned incentives, or bureaucratic inertia. Collapse propagates through people. To counter this, you need different governance. This diagnostic tool, the 72/Integrity Audit, illuminates hidden vulnerabilities across the entire system. It strips away outdated procedures and informational friction, mapping exactly how a failure cascades before it ever happens. You can pour billions into physical ports and data centers, but without an incorruptible decision-making engine, world-class infrastructure is just an expensive target. Looking down at the Strait of Hormuz, you see the ultimate stress test. A third of the world's seaborne oil passes through this narrow bottleneck. This map tracks the maritime domain as a system of logistical arteries. The goal is the absolute assurance of flow. Relying purely on military deterrence creates a dangerous vulnerability at this convergence point. A single physical disruption here threatens the entire regional economy. The alternative is architectural foresight. This line traces the Habshan-Fujairah pipeline. It deliberately bypasses the strait entirely, terminating directly on the eastern coast of the UAE. This massive physical infrastructure moves roughly 1.5 million barrels of crude oil daily, keeping throughput completely outside the primary threat zone. If a blockade occurs, the system absorbs the shock and reroutes the logistics. The oil keeps moving. By building out multiple pathways, geography no longer dictates energy security. It becomes a variable you can manage and control. As these modern, interconnected networks become harder to physically break, adversaries shift their tactics. If they can't blow up the pipeline, they target the trust in the systems running it. We are seeing a shift away from direct kinetic sabotage towards second-order attacks. These are cyber operations and legal pressures aimed at eroding coordination and confusing the network's redundancy layers. They don't need to cause a blackout. They just want institutional paralysis. Defending against this requires a doctrine of active stabilization. This graphic illustrates the concept. Instead of attempting the impossible task of preventing every single disruption, leadership focuses on maintaining the balance of the system. The operation stays upright and functional, even as external nodes fracture. But as this chart makes clear, operating in this upper quadrant, the Weaver architecture, is heavily capital-intensive. It requires exceptionally high institutional trust and long planning horizons. Fragile states simply do not have the elite competence required to maintain it over time. Today, conflicts aren't decided by holding a patch of dirt. They are won through absolute credibility and the unbroken continuity of your operations. This brings us to the ultimate blueprint for modern national defense, the triad of sovereignty. Each pillar supports the others. Architecture provides the physical structure. Integrity provides the institutional trust, maintained by audits, and governance provides the endurance needed to navigate a crisis. Future leaders face a critical test. They must ensure their networks are incorruptible,
as even the thickest walls cannot protect a system that fails from within.
In an era defined by constant disruption, sovereignty is the absolute assurance of flow.